Starting in the late 1970s and the early 1980s, a strange phenomenon was found to be taking place when young healthy men of ages primarily between 21 and 33 were being found dead in their sleep of unexplainable causes. That in of itself is something of concern, but the strange thing was that these sudden deaths in sleep seemed to be affecting a small certain demographic, the Hmong people of Southeast Asia, a very small percentage of the population within the U.S. at the time, with the first wave of Hmong being settled in established cities all across the country following the Vietnam War, in which many Hmong people found themselves in the States following relocation from their native countries of Laos, Vietnam, and Thailand. The first wave of immigrants to the country by 1975 totaled 30,000, and with this strange phenomenon taking place, rarely affecting the general population to begin with, the alarming number of deaths linked to this phenomenon just within the Hmong community by the mid-80s brought national attention and worldwide speculation for years to come. The description of the scenarios presented were that of healthy young Hmong men who by all accounts had no pre-existing or no medical ailments, going to sleep for the night only to never wake up again. And although this has been seen in medical science before, it is still classified as phenomenon in which no concrete conclusions have ever been come to. The medical term for this is SUNDS, S-U-N-D-S, or Sudden Unexplained Nocturnal Death Syndrome. SUNDS occurs predominantly in Southeast Asia and has different academic terms but similar definitions in different countries, such as Bengunhut in the Philippines, Lai Tai in Thailand, Pokuri Death Syndrome in Japan, and SUNDS in the United States and China. Despite these multiple terms, the common characteristics of these victims are sudden death of young healthy individuals, the vast majority males, during nocturnal sleep and post-mortem routine autopsy that cannot explain their deaths. The first known recorded case of SUNDS emerged out of the Philippines in 1917, and although studies throughout the decades worked to find answers behind these mysterious deaths, the main focal point and by far most famous of these incidents in the early and mid-1980s, when 117 young Southeast Asian men cause of death was medically determined to be that of SUNDS. Of those 117, most being young Hmong men, primarily no women or children were ever affected from the reports I've come across, with only one case out of the 117 being female that was linked to SUNDS. This once unknown and mysterious phenomenon now was brought to national attention and brought questions from the public, leading the CDC, the largest medical research body and government agency, to get involved, with the first reports being submitted to the Center of Disease and Control and Prevention in 1981. The actual medical diagnosis and cause of death for these young men would be looked into and autopsies performed to accurately define the cardiac abnormalities underlying SUNDS. 18 hearts were collected from the SUNDS cases in 1981 and were reevaluated by Kirshner et al. They found that 17 out of 18 had cardiac conduction system anomalies found, and over the later years, studies and reports following reviews of autopsies of victims in Manila, researchers showed that only 48% of the cases remain unexplained after gross autopsy, and more than half the deaths were caused by ill-defined heart diseases. But like researchers said, only half of the deaths reported could possibly be explained by some sort of medical condition, and even then left questions as to why so many young men's hearts were failing and stopping in their sleep, and it still left questions about the other half of victims who, with no symptoms whatsoever, succumbed while asleep. With numbers so high within just a decade-long time span, something obviously was affecting the young Hmong men and other Southeast Asian men of the 1980s. It's common among human culture of different nationalities when answers can't be found and facts don't present themselves in a rational, comprehensible way. We look for answers to the unexplainable within what we do know and what we do believe. And for the Hmong people, although medical science couldn't answer what was affecting them, they claimed to have already known and already be aware of this evil entity taking the lives of their young men, something already notorious and dreaded and deeply rooted within their culture and folklore. The Hmong knew this creature to be called the Dab Tsog, a nocturnal sleep demon. When encountered in its victims' dreams, it would take their life and suffocate them to death, and not just in their dream state, but in the real world as well, with many reports being that of victims being heard gurgling or gasping for air in these sleep paralysis episodes, with some victims claiming to have seen this entity on the nights leading up to their deaths, where they reported episodes of full sleep paralysis, feeling extreme dread and pressure on their bodies at the sight and feeling of these entities, with reports of the victims in their dreams being in a locked state of fear in which they couldn't escape.
And generally completely preventable.
My entire body was just immobile. I had no control over my limbs, any movement. I was just frozen stuck, heart pounding, like I could feel like my heart was pounding out of my chest, shortness of breath.
But
the odd thing being in this phenomenon of these sleep demons or nocturnal sleep paralysis creatures having a long history throughout the known world, with reports of the old hag across several cultures in Europe and the Americas, who appears in your dreams to haunt victims. Also, we have the mare of Scandinavian culture in Fiji, the Kano Tavaro. In Japanese culture, it is referred to as kanashibari. In Korean culture, sleep paralysis is called gawi nulum. And in Pakistan, sleep paralysis is considered an encounter with shaitan, an evil spirit or jinn. This depiction of an evil entity that waits for you in your dreams and eventually stalks and kills its victims would eventually lead to the inspiration to one of pop culture's most well-known horror icons in Freddy Krueger, a malevolent spirit of a child killer who had burned to death by its victims' parents after evading prison. Kreuger goes on to murder his victims in their dreams, causing their deaths in the real world as well. In the dream world, he is a powerful force and seemingly invulnerable. This character would be created after writer and director Wes Craven would read of the real-life deaths of the 117 young Hmong men in newspapers in the early 1980s. And although most of the people can tell you who Freddy Krueger is, not many know the dark and painful true history of the young Hmong men who lost their lives from this unexplainable force. The Dab Tsog will continue to be a sensitive topic within the Hmong immigrant communities, with many families refusing to ever speak on camera about the incidents and leaving scars for years to come, long after the 1980s and long after the national popularity of the cases. And with sleep paralysis itself being a widely studied but yet still unknown field of science that seems to continue to present itself in the modern day, this occurrence of being frozen in our dreams and encountering entities and spirits may continue to take place, but none, as of now, are as well known as the Hmong sleep deaths and the real-life nightmare on Elm Street. And guys, I just want to thank everyone for listening. If you happen to listen to this one again, from the first video to the second till now, I can't believe I've gotten this much engagement. It really brings happiness to me, and I appreciate every like, comment, subscriber, whether you liked the video and left a positive review, whether you have a critique of the video, or whether you have your own opinion, or whether you have something I think I could do better. Regardless of what it is, I really do appreciate the comment and having you guys follow and stick around. It means the world. So again, Happy New Year, take care, stay safe.